I'm the minister of this church here. Welcome to Highfields Church. Welcome to Cardiff Story. Great to be here. Married to Sally, and we've got 4 kids. Okay, good. Deep questions. KFC every time. Ketchup. Ooh, burgers. Yeah, burgers. How do you like your steak? Rare. Yes! Blood. Ooh, football or rugby. I think probably football. I support West Ham and I support England. Well, I like both tea and coffee. In fact, I've got a story about tea. A story, Cardiff, story about tea. Okay, so my parents have a kettle by their bedside where they make... it's a great story. Be quiet. Seriously, it's worth listening to this story. They've got a kettle by the bedside where they make teas and coffees in the morning to wake themselves up. And, it's the kind where you pour water through the spout rather than opening it up. And my mum was making it a while ago. And she was like, the flow is not going so smoothly at the moment. Maybe I need to clear it out. So she took up the lid, thinking she was clearing out the scale, tipped it upside down, and out fell the skeleton of a mouse.
That is grim.
Just think, just think months and months of cups of tea in the morning, like, oh my goodness.
Thanks for that. That was great.
There you are. That's ridiculous. Please don't be sick. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Am I on now?
Right. Just before we invite the interviewee, we're going to take a quick Story Cardiff selfie, which is going to be on social media. So, Hannah's going to, Dave, you can get it.
You want me in this?
Right. Go over there.
Okay.
Right, everyone pose and smile. You might actually not be seen. It might just be 3 people. Go deep, right. Smile.
Yes.
Good.
Right, we'll leave you to it, Dave.
Good. Thanks, guys. Well, it's great to be here at Cardiff Story. Thanks so much for coming. We're thrilled this evening. We're having our next story. The way we're doing these evenings, each evening we're having a story, a conversation with someone and getting to know their story. And as the evening unfolds, we'll be looking at the story surrounding Jesus Christ. So we've got a great evening in store. I want to invite John Paul Davies to come and join me at the front. John Paul, come up here. A nice story, Cardiff. Welcome to John. Yeah, sit down. Yep, great. Okay, so John, now the clue's on the wall behind me, the Sky News presenter John Paul Davies. So introduce yourself to us, Sky News presenter.
Well, good evening. It's good to be here this evening. And my name is actually John Paul Davies. So there's a story that goes with that as well. Because my first day at Sky, my boss said, after employing me, which was quite a lengthy process, and he was a bit dubious, but he said, what is your name anyway? And I said, it's John Paul Davies. He said, too long, John Davies. So there you go. Who was I to quibble about something so insignificant as the name that my parents gave me? So I work for Sky News, Sky Sports News as well, and also present some international football and rugby for Sky. Married to Kim, got four lovely young sons who are 11, 9, 6, and 3.
Oh, dude.
Thinking about getting a television set.
Give me a punch for 4 kids.
Yeah,
that's huge, man.
Thank you. Apparently, Dave, as my son said, you're supposed to do that at the end.
Oh, gosh.
Apparently,
awkward.
Yeah. All right. Midlife crisis over here.
How did you get into working in the media? Hear that story.
Yeah, I was actually, I used to be a policeman working these streets, so I used to be on my regular beat around here for 4 or 5 years, but I'd always wanted to get into journalism. I was 29, my wife was expecting our first child, and she said, look, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it now, because I'm not going to be able to support you next year, because we've got a little one on the way. So thanks to my lovely wife, I went back to college at the age of 29, did a conversion course, and then from there went into local radio for a few months, then got a job at ITV Wales, and then after the 2007 Rugby World Cup, thanks to God, got a job at Sky, which was 2008, so 9 years ago.
And you've moved around the country with your job at Sky, haven't you? Is that right?
No, who's been briefing you?
Well, weren't you in Oxford for a while?
You do, yeah. We're based in London, and you move around like according to Sports Stadia. So yeah, you follow the game really.
Yeah.
You're quite right.
Okay, so you're into stories in a big way. You're a media person, so like breaking a big story. Any great stories that you've broken or stories you've been part of as that work?
Funny you should say that, because last week we were sat there at about, I think it was about 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and my producer whispered in my ear, and this is quoting verbatim, he said, "I'm afraid you're going to have to break the news that the Republican candidate," didn't name him, "the Republican candidate is the new president of America." That was his words. So yeah, no. So that was news that we broke. Keep the facials, keep impartial and onwards and upwards, and let's see how it goes.
Okay.
And that was So that was an interesting one, wasn't it?
So you've had some kind of fun, exciting stories. Met lots of interesting people, I imagine. Yeah. But some of those meetings and friendships haven't always been the most straightforward, and sometimes you've kind of been confronted with sadness as well as kind of joy and celebration. Do you want to tell us a bit about that too?
The thing is, working in sport is that a lot of it is fun. By its very nature, sport is supposed to be fun, and people tune in for a bit of relaxation and downtime. But all life being what it is, often tragedy is never far around the corner. And 5 years ago, probably one of the toughest stories I had to deal with was the untimely death of Gary Speed, who was the Wales manager at the time. So difficult personally, because he was a good mate of mine. And I knew him, I knew his family, and I'd been with him, in fact, a couple of weeks before he passed away, and we'd shared a lot of good times together. And that was, and then a few months afterwards was asked to present the memorial match at the Cardiff City Stadium, which was one of the most I almost lost it. It was a very, very tough night. There was a very heavy atmosphere around the stadium that night, and it was one of those evenings where people were asking big questions about what life is really all about and what happens after. A lot of people were asking those kind of questions as well. So that was probably the toughest thing.
Okay. Now you're talking about big questions and what life is all about. As well as working in the media, you're a Christian. It'd be lovely to hear that side of your story as well as the Sky Sports man. You're a follower of Jesus. Yeah. How did that happen?
Well, I at the age of 9, I had an experience of the love of Jesus Christ. That was by the grace of God, and also down to incredibly faithful and humble parents who to this day are probably the best examples of Christ's love lived out in a very, very obvious way. So I'm very grateful to them. I had this experience at the age of 9. I suppose it was very much head knowledge, though, right through my teenage years, and actually probably well into my 20s. There were a couple of reasons for that. I think when you're growing up and you're in a church environment, a religious environment, you want to please people. And there was a lot of rhetoric about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And I think I was probably a people pleaser growing up. And so the head knowledge, even though it was a genuine experience of Jesus Christ when I was 9 years old, wasn't something that was transforming me from the heart. And I wasn't interested in religion, actually. When you're older, you look back and think religion held very little truck with me. But I was genuinely compelled by this man, Jesus Christ, and what he offered, because I'd experienced his love as a youngster. And one thing I was not willing to do was be insincere. And I struggled, actually, with that, because I knew he was in me, but I knew it wasn't my faith. I didn't want to inherit somebody else's faith. I needed it to be my faith. And probably into my late 20s, when I was with ITV, actually, we took a news crew out to one of the most needy countries in the world. And subsequently, we went to another number of countries within Africa as well. And it was there that I saw most potently the love of Jesus Christ in action in people's lives. There were people who could have been doctors, politicians, or whatever in the Western world who'd gone to these places and were living a life that was utterly compelling. And then you meet double orphans who have absolutely no reason to have any sense of peace whatsoever, but yet, because of their belief and being driven by the love of Christ. They had something that was utterly compelling. And it was a changing moment, really, for me. Yeah. It was a changing moment.
Okay, so you're describing this compelling aspect of Christ's love. What is it about Jesus Christ for you that kind of drew you to him, that made you think, yeah, he's the one who I think needs to be number one?
Jesus said in his word, he said, if you believe in me, I am in you and you are in me. And I think most people, if they're honest, are in search of a sense of peace and a sense of belonging. And what I discovered, and what I'm discovering, I don't want to paint the picture that I'm any finished article. I'm far from it. I've made some howling mistakes. I'll make some more. But what I've discovered is that Jesus is real and he wants to live in us. And we talk about the Creator God as some ethereal, majestic thing. And he is. But he also wants to know us intimately. He wants to love us intimately. And so the thing that compelled me about Jesus Christ was that I saw him as a benevolent God wanting to pour out his extravagant love on me. And I saw him with open arms. And I saw him saying to me, just come. Come as you are. You don't need to necessarily be doing this or be doing that, or worrying about your behavior. And one of the most precious stories to me about Jesus is when he lived on earth, and he's the same Jesus now as he was then. These guys came to him and they were getting a bit of a battering. The religious authorities of the day were saying, well, listen, you've got to obey these rules, and you're not allowed to do this, by the way. And they came to Jesus and said, look, I'm never going to keep the rules. No chance. I'll relate it to that, because I can't keep the rules. I don't think many of us can. And Jesus said to them, well, listen, it's not about the rules, it's about freedom. It's about being free. And my experience of Jesus Christ is that he sets people free. My soul found rest in Jesus Christ because he's a person who sets people free and loves people unconditionally. So I was drawn to him, and he's more real to me, Dave, than you sat there now. And the sense of peace that he brings, because I think we're hardwired as human beings. We're hardwired to need something in our lives that provides something that looks beyond this life. Yeah. And the great thing about Jesus' story is that there is no end to that story. Yeah. Because it goes way beyond this life into the next life. And I believe that our dying breath on this earth ushers in eternity. And the two are inextricably linked. And so I owe everything to him. You know, without him, I have no idea where I'd be today.
Wow, that's great. The last question is, working for Sky Sports, presenting the Olympics or the Champions League final, you've made it, you've achieved something, you're meeting famous people. That versus Jesus Christ, what's the most satisfying out of the two for you? What comes first?
I mean, it's a whole, I appreciate the comparison. And we use that expression, don't we? You've made it. I certainly don't see myself in that light whatsoever. My relationship with Christ makes me realize and understand that the only day that I'll ever make it is when I look more like him than anybody else. So what does that mean to me? And I've been challenged by it in recent weeks, because a friend of mine passed away 2 or 3 weeks ago. And again, it's those experiences in life, a young guy with a young family, that just make you think, what is life really all about? I hear Christ saying to me through his Spirit, and God speaks to us. God's not distant. God speaks to us. And when his Spirit lives in you, there's a change in your thought process, because he's speaking to you, and he does it through the Word, through the Bible, and he does it through prayer. Prayer is a conversation with God. And God says to me quite clearly, pour yourself out for people. Love people extravagantly. People want to be loved. I believe people don't necessarily want to be convinced of Jesus Christ and all he's talking about, but people want to be loved. And I feel him saying to me, just come to me, and I will give you rest. And so, comparison, no comparison. I'm grateful for the opportunity he's given. Very grateful for the opportunity he's given. But man, you can't compare anything to a guy who dies on a cross and gives his life for you, and far, far more than I can even describe to you in a few moments. Wow. So there's no comparison.
John, thank you so much for your honesty, and it's been wonderful to hear your story. Why don't we say thank you to John for sharing his time with us?
Thanks, mate. Good. Well done.
We're going to hear about God's amazing love for us now, using the little books that are on the tables around the place. These Luke's Gospels, and we'll see on the screen the words. It's on page 42, Luke's Gospel, chapter 15, big number 15, little number 11. So I think there should be plenty of these to go round, and Hannah Fion's going to read us this eyewitness account of Jesus Christ. So it's Luke chapter 15. You can see on the screen, and the books might be helpful too. Thanks.
Okay. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods and that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the elder son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of his servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come home,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The elder brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when the son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'"
I'll make this go a bit higher, hopefully. Well, thanks so much for coming. It's great to be here this evening at Story Cardiff. Everyone loves a story, don't they? What's your favourite story? Anyone got a favourite story, novel you were read as a child? Shout out your favourite story. Love to hear it. Beauty and the Dog. What was this first one? Matilda, excuse me. Matilda. Anyone else? One at a time. Pride and Prejudice. Very good. Whoa, yeah. Anyone else? Favourite story? The Great Gatsby. Oh, bit of class here at the front. Any lads read any books ever? Rocky, yeah, good. Hey, playing to gender stereotypes nicely. Anyone else? Say again? The Little Prince. Okay, not heard of that one. Well, what makes a good story? Okay, what makes a good story? Shout out, what makes a good story? One at a time. The plot, yeah, a plot makes a good story. Anything else? Characters. Yes, great. Say again? A believable ending. Thank you. Yeah, great. Anyone else? The meaning of the story. Yeah. Relatable. So maybe we can see a character, we sympathize with them. They're a bit like me. They're totally different from me. I don't like them at all. Tonight we're thinking about, arguably, what could be claimed the greatest story ever told. It was told by Jesus Christ a couple of millennia ago, and it's on page 42. It's the reading that Hannah Fiona has just read for us. And the story is about running. It's about pursuing something, running hard after something, chasing something down with all of your being. That's why we're calling tonight the story of the seeker. And I think the reason it resonates so much with us, it's such a famous story, the parable of the lost son, is because deep down, to be human is to run. Naturally speaking, we all run after things. Not literally run after things, of course. I went for a run last week, and I'm still feeling it in my knees. I'm getting old, and when I bend down to do my shoelaces, I'm more inclined to ask, what can I do while I'm down here? I'm just so kind of exhausted. But not running that kind of running, but just running after something, seeking after something, chasing it down with all of your might, to pursue it, to dream after it, to run after making the first 15. To run hard after making the first class degree, to get that seat in the orchestra, to run after that girl or that guy, to complete me and make my uni life feel secure, to run after the career, to run after the prize, to run after the media. No one isn't running after something. No one isn't doing that. You can't stand still. You're like a shark. We're all constantly moving. We cannot not be moving. We're heading down, facing something, heading somewhere, pressing on, never resting, never stopping, always leaning forward, leaning into the chase, the pursuit, the dream. Well, that's what tonight's story is all about, and how God responds to that kind of chase. We're in Luke 15. It's called the parable of the lost son in the little writing on our page. It actually could be called the parable of the lost sons. We'll come back to that in a moment. The kind of context of the passage is the first couple of verses, the tiny little numbers 1 and 2, right at the top of the page. I'm going to read it out. It says the following: Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering round to hear Jesus. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." This is written, an eyewitness account of Jesus Christ, and we can trust the words on the page here now. And it's crucial to remember that these are the two groups of people that are in the audience as Jesus tells his story. You've got the tax collectors and sinners right at the top. They're the religious outcasts, the bad guys. They're technically the Jews who are working for the Romans, the occupying Romans, taking the money and nicking a bit of the money on the side. So everyone hates the tax collectors in the Bible times. They're bottom of the barrel type, the greedy, the selfish. They're the enemy. You don't want them elected president. They're the tax collectors. And then there are the Pharisees and the teachers of the law. They're the good guys. They're the ones everyone likes and celebrates. They're the religious gatekeepers, so to speak. They're the kind of vicars and the priests, the CU leaders, the theologians. They're the two groups of people in the room. And there are, and then Jesus tells this story. He tells three stories, and we'll look at the third one, which is verse 11, little number 11 onwards. And someone said a great resolution or a believable ending. Well, there are two twists in this story that I think is another thing that makes a great story. You just think, I did not see that coming. Here's the first twist in the story we're looking at tonight. There are two ways to run from God. There are two ways to run from God. If to be human is to run after something and to pursue something and to chase it down with all my might, then Jesus is saying that naturally speaking, all of us are doing that away from God. Naturally. Naturally, we're chasing other things other than God. We're chasing stuff that he has made in his world, creation, rather than chasing the creator. And we're all doing it. You can't not do it. You're a shark pursuing something naturally. You're running after it. I hope you can see that. What you might not have seen is what Jesus says in this story, which is to say that there are two ways to run away from God. It's not as if God is that way and we're all kind of running that way. It's more like God is in the middle and half of us are running over that way and half are running that way. And we're going to see the two ways to run from God as we track through the story and see these two sons. You may have heard the story, the prodigal son, the lost son. You may have done it in RE. You may have read it many, many times before. But you may never have spotted the fact that both brothers are running away from the father. There are two ways to run from God. And they're both equally lost. And as we study this little part of the account about Jesus, it'll be a little bit like looking in a mirror. And I imagine that we'll see something of ourselves in this story. And aspects of the story will resonate more with one kind of person here than another kind of person. We'll see ourselves here, I'm sure. Whether you're male or female, we'll find out where we relate currently to God. Two ways to run from God. Some of us are running from God a bit like the younger brother, who is the famous one in the story. That's the kind of living the life way of running from God. Living the life. So look down in our passage, little number 11. Jesus continued, there was a man who had two sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of my estate." And now let's face it, getting money out of the oldies is a skill, total skill. You may have heard the story about the couple who were a bit concerned about their son, who they hadn't heard of for a while, who's gone off to university. And one morning the wife says to her husband, "Darling, when did you last hear from Dan?" To which Darling replies, "Well, don't worry, let me just look up in the checkbook." And that's the last time we heard from Dan, because they're after the money all the time. Well, this younger brother isn't simply asking for an advance on his money, on his inheritance. For the younger brother to say, while his father is alive, "Give me my share of the inheritance," is to say, "Dad, die. Dad, die. Go away. Stuff you, Dad. Just go and die. I don't want you in my life. I want my portion of your money now up front." You imagine your dad. You imagine you are the dad in the story and you've poured your love. Some of us didn't have a loving father or mother, but this story, a loving father, pouring his love out, affection, devotion, and it's thrown back in his face. "Stuff you, get out of my face, Dad." In little number 12, we're told the father divided his property between them. And so from now on, the father has to live off 2/3 of his wealth. And actually, it's worse than that, because the word for property, in where it says his property, the actual original word is bios, which is often translated life. It's where we get the word biology from. So for the father to free up money in order to give his son his share of the inheritance would mean dividing up his life. This is breaking the father's heart. This is ripping Dad in two. Well, the son can't be bothered. He's off. He clears out, and we read that he's gone. He's gone. The drinks flow. He spends it all. The women swoon. The nightlife seems so high. One long freshers week after week after week. And then the money runs out, and the women walk away, and he's left in the mud feeding unclean pigs, we're told. He's feeding the pigs, and we think, "Oh, that's disgusting, smelly pigs." If you're a first century Jew reading this, that's sacrilege. That is the most defiled thing you could ever have to do in your life. Feeding pigs, these are ceremonially unclean. What seemed like freedom for this lad, living the life, it's become slavery. Total slavery. People can play this younger brother role in different kinds of ways. Some of us literally try to live the life big time, and we spend money to make money. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we diet, and so on and so forth. We just want to spend it all, live it up, drink it out every night of the week, and we indulge all that university life has to offer. That may be you. Other people want to kind of shun materialism and say, "Actually, I'm not sure I want to live that way, and I want to, I don't want to do the indulgent thing, but I'm no less living it up my own way. I want to let go of the constraints. I want to be autonomous. I want to be free-spirited and live for myself. There's a very profound illustration of this in the movie Into the Wild, which was based on the best-selling book, which came out a number of years ago. It tells the story of someone called Christopher McCandless. And Christopher is this American college all-star hero kid. He has it all, and then he runs away. He can't cope with the materialism and the kind of fragility and the triviality of his life that he's living, and he shuns relationships, and he shuns matter and stuff, and he heads into the wild to try to discover himself out in Alaska, looking for purpose and meaning and so on. If you want something in life, he says, reach out and grab it. That's his theme. And he crosses streams, he climbs mountains, and he lives on whatever he can catch into the wild. And he ends up being trapped the wrong side of a fast-moving stream. And very quickly, he becomes stranded. And what seemed like freedom for him ended up as slavery. He ends up imprisoned in a camper van and cocooned alone to his death. So that's one kind of way of living. The other kind of way of living is espoused by probably the greatest film that came out in the last 3 years, which is, of course, Frozen. I'm joking. I do have an 8-year-old daughter and know the songs very well. You know the story of Frozen. Elsa, the Snow Queen, sings, let it go, I can't hold back anymore, let it go, turn away, slam the door. I'm not singing it, I'm stating it, just be clear. I'm going to be free, I'm going to live for myself. Live it up, be yourself. But where does she end up? In slavery, in her ice palace far away from family and friends and loved ones. Everything is turned to ice and snow. It's actually destruction for her, not freedom. She might be the older sister in the story of Frozen. She's a lot like the younger brother here. And many people are running from God that kind of way. They're pursuing, I don't want constraints. I want to live it up for me. I don't want to live up to your standards, God. Just get out of my eyes. I'll do it my way, thank you very much. Some run after stuff. Some run away from stuff. But as far as God is concerned, clear out, God. You may as well be dead. 2 ways to run from God. Living the life way. But then there's the older brother in our story, which is the keeping the rules way of running from God. Now you think, Dave, are you serious? Keeping the rules is a way of running from God? I think it is. Luke 15 says it's equally dangerous as far as relationship with God is concerned. Equally dangerous. Because it's so hard to spot. Let's fast forward to Act 2 of our story. And there's a great reunion. I'm sorry, there's a spoiler, but they do come back together. Verse 25 we're in. Meanwhile, the eldest son was in the field. When he came near the house, little number 25, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what was going on. Your brother has come, he replied, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. The elder brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. You never gave even me so much as a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. You just listen to this venomous outburst. The bitterness that runs inside this elder brother runs just as deep. It's just as hostile. It's just as estranged and removed from the love of the father as his younger brother was. Just as out of relationship with the father who's loved him. Look at the evidence of that passage I've just read. He can't address his father. Look, he says, all these years I've been slaving for you. He describes this relationship with dad as slavery. No relationship with a father should be like that. And I'm sure the father wasn't doing it that way. But no, I'm a servant. You're the master. You've broken me. There's no tenderness. There's no love of the son to his father. No compassion. And the only way that he can refer to this, to his brother, is this son of yours. This son of yours. I can't even call him my brother. This son of yours. He's just nothing to me. Just think about what's going on in the story. This is the greatest day of the father's life. This is your wedding day, your graduation day. This is your first child's birthday. This is just everything rolled into one. Celebrate. We've got to celebrate. Yes, dreaming, party. And, what has been lost is found. And the older brother, nothing to do with it. Hate it all. Do you know the shame that would have brought on the father? Whole community around. You can imagine the scene, can't you? Everyone's there. Granny, grandpa, the aunts, the uncles, loads of them, friends, family. The calf is on the spit going away. The barbecue is roasting. The corks are popping. Celebration party poppers going. The XX pumping the music out really loud. Next door neighbor comes in and says, where's your son? Where's your oldest son? Why is he not here? And he won't come. He doesn't want to know. He won't come in. And for all the protestations of loyalty we read in our passage and faithfulness from the elder son, he's kind of just like keeping the rules, and keeping the rules for him has meant running from his father. He has no love for his father whatsoever. And of course, the father in the story represents God. If the younger brother in the story maps onto those tax collectors and the sinners at the start of our passage, well, the older brother clearly maps onto the Pharisees. Jesus is clearly speaking to two sets of people with two different characters in his story. And it's clear the Pharisees think God owes us. He owes me. We've slavishly kept the rules. We've kept all the rules for you, God. We've reined ourselves in. We've been christened. We've been confirmed. We know the Lord's Prayer. We keep Lent. We buy free trade coffee. We buy our Remembrance Day poppy. We're religious, good people. We've disciplined ourselves with hard work. We've got up early, went to bed late at night. Everything we've got, we have earned. Come on. Aren't we great? You owe us. We don't spend all our money on wild living like that son of yours. You can imagine the Pharisees at this point kind of looking down at the tax collectors, hearing the story and seeing those dodgy Excel spreadsheets. Yeah, you tell them, Jesus. They don't deserve anything from God. They deserve nothing. We're the rightful heirs in the story. We're the ones who should have everything from God. We should get the fatted calf. We've given everything to you, God. We're good people. We're religious people. How dare you offer it to outcasts like him? God, we hate that in you. We hate you. Once upon a time, there was a gardener who worked very loyally for a king, and the king was very wise. And because the gardener loved the king so much, he gave the king an enormous bunch of carrots. He loved his king so much. And the king rewarded the gardener with an enormous plot of land so that he could continue to bless the kingdom. Very, very generous king. Now, a local courtier looks on and sees, my goodness me, an acre of land for a bunch of carrots. What a great deal. And so the next day, the courtier rocks up to the king and says, hello, king, I have got you a magnificent horse, and presents the horse to the king. But the wise old king sees right through the courtier and says, thank you, courtier, and sends the courtier away. And the courtier's like, what? No, this is not the script. No, The king says, the gardener gave me the carrots. You gave yourself the horse. You gave not for love of me, but for love of yourself in the hope of a reward. That's exactly what the older brother is doing in the story. He says, look at what I've done. I've done all these amazing things for you, God. I've been a nice person. I'm a kind person. Everyone likes me around here. I've labored. My standards are good. Look how self-righteous I am. I'm a very, very good person. Much better than others I can think of. You've been doing it for you. If that's your approach to God. It's all self-serving. It's a way of running away from God. Because there are two ways to run from God. That's the first thing in the story, the first twist. The second is at the end, and boy, this is amazing. If there are two ways to run from God, get this. God's extravagant love runs after them both. This is just extraordinary. God's extravagant love runs after them both. The parable gives hope for both sons, whether you're an elder son or a younger son. The hinge of the story is in the pigsty. So let's go into the pigsty. Verse 17. This is about the young son. When he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death." Top of page 43, number 18. "I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you.'" The young man is in the pigsty and he realizes that he's got a broken relationship. And when you've got a broken relationship, the crucial thing is that whoever your relationship has broken down with, ultimately, it's a broken relationship with God. It's a broken relationship with God. So that's why the young guy says, "I've sinned against heaven and against you." Problems with each other all flow out of problems with God, friends. And the speech continues in the pigsty, verse 19. "I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants." Presumably he's already planning on how to earn the money back, which he gave, that third he stole from his dad. He's trying to give it back. And so verse 20 we read, he got up and went to his father. And you can imagine every single step. He knows he's for it. And he's walking now. He stopped running away. He's walking back. And every step he's thinking, "I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. He's going to destroy me." And he's, "No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I don't want the pigsty. I want to be back with my dad." He's walking. "No, I can't do it." And he's just, which way does he go? He's thinking, "Lord, please help me. I've sinned against you. Please help me. Help me have the courage to go back. I need to go back. I've run away. I need to go back." And he's torn. He's torn. He's stepping forward. His heart is pounding. "I'm better off dead. I'm better off with the pigs. I can't do it. I'm dead wherever I go." And then suddenly, look, verse 20. "But while he was still a long way off and he's stepping forwards, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him and kissed him. He knocks the boy to the floor, crashes him to the ground, kisses him. "My son, my son, my son, I love you." Parents can be so embarrassing, can't they? It's always great fun watching first years trying to kind of shimmy out of a kiss with dad when they're dropped off at the gates of their halls of residence for the first time. You're just kind of seeing it happen. See it every time. It's great fun to watch. Well, however embarrassing it was for the son, you think how embarrassing this was for the father. How embarrassing it is for him. Middle Eastern men don't show their emotion. They certainly don't hitch up their kind of clothes and bare their legs like a little toddler running down the ground, only to kiss this grubby cheek that has been in a pigsty not long ago. No one would do that. Deeply shameful. Well, the young man is totally taken off guard. He's been smashed to the floor with his father diving on him, kissing him all over. It's like, "Dad, what?" And he tries to begin his speech. "Dad, look, I've got something to say to you." And his dad's like, "Shut up. I'm going to take the hit myself. I'm going to take the hit instead of you. You don't take the hit. You don't take the financial hit. I'll take the hit. You don't take the social hit. I will take the hit." Always someone needs to take the hit when there's a reconciliation, friends. Someone needs to take it every time. The father says to his servant, verse 22, "Go, get the best robe." The best robe is made of the finest linen, covering the boy's nakedness and his shame. They put sandals on his feet. They put a ring on his finger. And the ring says, "You're back in the family." The ring is a sign of being in the family. You're right back here. You're one of the sons again. I love you. Bring that fatted calf, the most expensive food you could imagine. Food that would feed a whole army. Let's kill it. Let's have a feast. Let's celebrate for this son. This lost son of mine was lost and is found. We celebrate. Friends, this is incredible, extravagant love. The Bible word is grace. Undeserved kindness. Costly kindness. Indulgent kindness. There's, though, another surprise in the story. As you read, you keep on reading, you think, well, why is Jesus telling us this story? I tell you, he's telling us this story because he knows that it's grace that bears its legs and runs down from heaven in Jesus Christ. That's why he's telling us this story. Jesus Christ was the faithful son, the one who came from his Father in the person of Jesus. It's costly grace that sees not merely the fattened calf that needs to be killed to restore the broken relationship. He knows that it's himself. Elsewhere, he calls himself the Lamb of God who needs to be killed in place of all the brothers and sisters of his who've run away, running after everything else except him. He knows that. He knows it's coming for him as he's crucified on Good Friday, paying for all our moral debt that deserves punishment, that deserves to be cast away from the Father. He takes it all on himself, and he then rises again in victory on Easter Day. And because this Jesus, this faithful Son, was dead and is alive again, as the Father would say, well, so too sons and daughters like you and me, if we go to him, can know that even though we die one day, as John said, the last breath you take will usher in a whole new eternity, which will go on forever and be made alive again. And it comes to us completely free. That's the offer, the Christian offer, this extravagant love of God. You know, there's a Buddhist version of the prodigal son story, the lost son story. And in the Buddhist version, it's written in another ancient text. In the Buddhist version, the younger son comes back, and the father says, I'll have you back, but you've got to work. And you've got to work, and you've got to work at the bottom of the household as the lowest of the lowest slave. And only then, when you've worked for years and years and years and years, will I accept you back in. There's none of that here. In the Christian message, friends, this original parable, God's grace, God's extravagant love is completely free. You just have to come and say, please, will you give me that love? You've run after me. You've pursued me. Well, you know, it's that love that the elder brother could not swallow. He just could not cope with it. He hated the fact that this extravagant love levels the playing field. That whoever you are, whatever you've done, wherever you've run so hard after any number of things, after stuff, after not stuff, whatever it is, if you come back to God, you make one step in the pigsty back to God, you say, I'm going to go for it. He will have you back in a heartbeat. He'll take you then and there, grubby, failed though you are. He'll embrace you. He'll knock you to the floor in his love. He'll kiss you. He'll put a robe on your back. He'll put a ring on your finger. He'll call you my beloved son and daughter. You know what's really amazing about God's love in this story? And this is stunning. What is really amazing about this love, this extravagant love, costly, lavish love, from the father to the younger son, it's that love that also reaches out to the older son too. That was a massive revelation for me when I spotted it a few years ago. God, you see, isn't judgmental for the judgmental. He's not critical of the critical. He's not a Pharisee for the Pharisees. He pleads with older brothers and he pleads with younger brothers to come back to him. That's why there's that amazingly moving exchange. Verse 28, little number 28 in our passage, the elder brother's angry. So his father went out and pleaded with him. You've got the older brother outside in a hump, like, can't cope with this. Go away, party, don't care about that. And the father's like, please, please, please come in. I love you. All I have is yours. Come in. He won't be silenced. The father is as tender as the son is bitter. And you know it's the elder's son's only hope. The older brother wants justice. He wants justice. Be a just father. Just be just. That's all I want. Pay me back for all I've given you. Where's my calf? Where's my robe? Where's my ring? Where's my party? Where's my money to spend with my friends? How on earth can that creature, that son of yours, get anything from you? He deserves nothing. Give me justice, Father. It's not justice that the son needs. You may have heard the story of the photography studio where a rather crusty old lady came in to have her portrait taken. And she flapped around and fussed for seemingly hours over the lighting and the angle and her makeup and the focus and the background and the foreground and the powdering. And the photographer's patience is kind of, are you ready, love? Come on, I've got like lots of work to do. And he's about to take the photograph. He leans in and the woman says to him, I hope you'll do me justice. To which the photographer, something snapped in him and he said, Madam, it's not justice you need, it's mercy. Well, so too with the elder son. He says, give me justice, Father. Treat me fairly, Father. Treat me fairly, God, for what I've done. Don't call for justice from God, friends. If you do that, you don't want justice, you want mercy. And there are two kinds of ways of running, and God's love runs after us both. He runs hard after us both. I said at the start, it's a bit like a mirror as we read this, and you'll find yourself somewhere in the story. And we're going to close shortly. And as we close, I just wonder, where are you in the story? The younger son? Are you a hair's breadth from walking out on God? Maybe you've been close to him, and maybe there's a relationship that's on the horizon, or there's a love that's coming your way, or there's a move, or there's a decision. And you're about to make something and do something, and you're going to run away from God further and further away. Maybe you're already like the younger son, and you're in verse 13. You set out, you're on the run, you're chasing independence, and you can't be bothered with God. You're living it up, living the life. And you'll soon see, my friend, that slavery is coming. If you run hard away from God, that's coming your way. Maybe you're like the older brother. And outwardly, you're very religious. You know it all up here, as John said so helpfully. You've gone through the motions. You understand stuff in here. You've been to church before now. You've come from a Christian background, perhaps, or a religious background. All the rituals are there. It's all up there. Inside, it's hollow. You give it a punch. There's nothing inside. Hollow. No love for God. Is that you? You may still be thinking, look, I can earn my way to God. I'm okay with God because of the kind of person I am, what I've done. But I've no affection for him. Friends, if that is you, or there's any sense in which it might be you, can I urge you, come back to God. Come back to the Father. His arms are open wide. His welcome is precious as he offers to give you his extravagant love. Friendship with God that starts now and goes on and on and on and on forevermore. Friends, come back to the Father. It's the greatest celebration imaginable. The greatest party you can dream of. Don't stay far away. Don't stay far removed. Don't be like that elder brother outside. Come in. Come home. Where are you in this story? I imagine we're in lots of different places, actually, this evening. We may be the elder son, the younger son, somewhere between the two. It may be that you're here tonight, and you think, I don't believe a word of this, and you're miles and miles away. Imagine there's a line here, okay? On this side, you could be over here, and you're like, I don't believe it. It's crazy. I want to say to you, thanks so much for coming. And I'd love to carry on a conversation with you if you'd like. And I could give you something to read if you'd like. But I really appreciate you coming. Thank you so much for doing that. It may be that you're over the other side and you're signed up, follower of Jesus Christ, and you love him. And you remember the days when you were the younger son or the older son, and you're now back with the Father, and he loves you and wants you to know that more and more. And it's great that you're here. Please keep coming and bringing your friends along. It may be, though, that you're somewhere in the middle and you're thinking, I'm kind of not over there crazy, not over there believing. I'm kind of halfway. For you, I'd say keep on coming back to these events this week. Keep on exploring these great stories. Keep talking to your friends who've brought you here tonight. Keep on coming to those events that are around the various university campuses each lunchtime. Come back tomorrow night. Great opportunity to hear more of God's amazing love. It may be, though, that you're kind of somewhere between here, which is still thinking it through, and there, which is I'm already decided. And you may be here, which is, I've heard a lot. I've moved a long way from rejecting it all, but I'm kind of not yet there, but I'm getting close. We've got these little cards on the tables. I wonder whether everyone could pull up a card. These tiny little business cards on the tables. And we would love your feedback and your various comments and your questions, etc. And there'll be a chance to write those down in a moment or so. But if you're here, it may be that you're thinking to yourself, I need to decide to follow Jesus Christ. And I want to do that. And if that is you, then becoming a Christian is simply a prayer away. It only takes saying some words to God, and he hears those words and says, I'll have you back, come home. It's the biggest decision you could possibly make, and you mustn't rush it. But if you do want to do that, then we're going to pray a prayer in a moment, And we're going to put up on the screen. Can we have it up on the screen? In a moment, what we're going to do, we're going to fill in some cards, and there'll be some quiet, chill out, some music, and we'll hear a spoken word. And then after that time, I'm going to pray this prayer, but I'm going to leave that up on the screen so that you can see the kinds of things you would want to be saying to God if you wanted to make that step back into relationship with him. These are the words you would say. Dear God, sorry for running away from you in your world. Sorry for running after other things instead of you. Thank you for the extravagant love that ran out to me. Thank you that Jesus died on the cross to pay for all I've done. Thank you that he rose again to give me new life. Please forgive me. Turn my life around and help me to live for you from now on. Amen. And what we're going to do is we're going to leave those words up on the screen. And in a moment, in about 10 minutes or so after we've heard a spoken word, I'm going to pray those words and invite you, if you'd like to pray, those words too. But we've got 10 minutes where we've got these cards, and I'd love your feedback. It'd be great if every one of us in the room could do this. So you may be part of the Cardiff Story team, you may be a guest, you may be a visitor, you may be the first time ever in this room. Wherever you're from, we'd love your feedback. Name, year, course, how we could have done the evening better. And any questions you've got. If you've got questions, we're going to take those cards in about 10 or 15 minutes. We'll try and work through some of those questions together before we wrap up. So why don't you write down your comments, write down your responses. If you would like to know more, that's you kind of roughly in the middle, tick that box, I'd like to know more. If you are thinking, I'm going to pray a prayer tonight, I want to follow Jesus Christ, you might want to tick the count me in box as well. You can do that now or a little bit later on as well. But I'm going to hand over to you, and we've got about 10 minutes for some more tea, coffees, cakes, and a chat. Thanks so much.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, guys. How are we all doing? Come on. How are we all doing, guys? Yeah, I got a whoop. I wasn't even expecting a whoop. That was excellent. Hashtag amazing. Fantastic. Well, it's great to be part of this evening. Hope you're enjoying so far. Are we enjoying so far? Yeah. Brilliant. Excellent. Another whoop. Fantastic. 2 whoops, 1 evening. That's brilliant. I wasn't even expecting it. My name's Di Woolridge. For those of you who don't know me, I do spoken word. And just off the back of what Dave spoke to us about the prodigal son, I've come up with a spoken word piece, and it's based on the younger son turning back to the father, and this is called Coming Home. Hope you enjoy. I was your son. You were my dad, but I gave you up and I was glad. I was blind, I was lost, I made you pay the total cost. I took half of it and I squandered it. I spent money like I was made of it. Down in the gutter, there was nothing left. I found myself drowning in a sea of debt. No place to go, all alone, tail between my knees, I walk home. But you threw a party because you found me. I rejected you, but you call me family. You call me home, you call me back. You look at me and tell me that I am your son and you are my dad, and you will never give up on me. You will never give up on me. You will never give up on me. Thank you. I'm so glad. Thank you. And you may have picked up on a bit of a theme in The Prodigal Son. It was all about these 2 sons running away from God, wasn't it? And the younger son, especially from his perspective, he turns back to the father, doesn't he? He changes direction. And I want to share a bit about my story, which is the fact that I'm rubbish at directions. Honestly, no, I'm serious. I don't know my left from my right. It's awkward. What I meant to say was I don't know my right from my left. Right. I know he's right, God that is, but I'm just left confused which way that is. When God is left, I'm not right. But on the other hand, God is right in my life when I'm left. He's right, I'm left. I'm wrong, he's right. And I'm only right when I go his way, the right way, and leave behind all that should be left. Right? Thanks. I wasn't expecting round applause. I've totally lost my place. This is brilliant. That didn't happen. He's right, I'm left. I'm wrong, he's right. And I'm only right when I go his way, the right way, leave behind all that should be left, right? Paul, the New Testament guy, writes about it. Left, right, and center. Left justness through faith. No, hang on, that's not right. But I do want to be right, so he's got to be the center. And when he is, I'm left. Left with right joy, because I know that he makes me right. And he radically improves my sight. He gives me scriptural prescription glasses. So I say when I can see his sovereignty, what is better than when he is right at the center? Thank you.
Hi guys, you could take your seats again, if that's possible. You quickly scurry to your seats or just stand. Hello, hello.
Right, you ready? We're going to have Q&A now. We're looking forward to your questions and that we'll answer. We've got these two guys here to answer some of them. We're not going to get through them all, but we'll answer as many as we can. So I think Reece got the first one.
Right, so the first question. So what can I do with the things that stand between me and God's love?
Can you say that again?
What can I do with the things that stand between me and God's love?
Well, in some senses, nothing stands between you and God's love. It wasn't that the younger brother had to do the long walk home before he received the welcome restart, as Mumford & Sons saying. He didn't have to do that long walk. He was received when he was a long way off. You know, God's love runs out a long way towards us. So on one hand, nothing. You know, God's love breaks through our hardened hearts. It's not that we've kind of let go of stuff and then we can receive God's love. He grabs us when we're covered in pig's muck. At the same time, it may well be that you're wanting to get to know God better, and there are things in your life that you're holding on to that are not pleasing him, in the same way that any relationship, you know, that if my children act in a certain way and I constantly give them my love, and that will never stop, and yet there are ways of making me frown, and that's the same in regards to God as well. And so it depends kind of where you're at, whether you currently call yourself somebody who follows Jesus or you don't. The fact is that wherever you are, God's love can break through, but when he does, and his love runs out to grab us, that will necessarily turn your life around when you receive his love. You can't carry on. You can't kind of bolt his love on and keep on running the same way. It's not his love's not like an energy drink when you're doing the Cardiff half, like knock a bit of God's love back down and keep going. Like, he'll turn you around and make you run, you know, where you come from. So yeah.
Yeah, my experience was that, and it really changed it for me probably in my late 20s, early 30s, was I fully grasped that God says in the Bible and really means just come as you are.
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel as though, well, I can't because I've done this, I might be doing this, and there are certain patterns of behavior, addictions, whatever they are. God doesn't care. And I think sometimes we get the wrong opinion of God, that he's austere and he's distant and he's judgmental. He's not. And that I think if that's what you see as religion, and that's the line that religion has peddled, then I'll tell you tonight, it's wrong. It's utterly wrong. People say, I can't come to God because, well, church, it's austere, whatever it is. But God says, come as you are. And that story I told, when those people came to him, they'd had a battering from religious people. Got a lot to answer for. Religion's got a lot to answer for. I agree with that. But he said, come to me, all you who are weary and are burdened. That means weighed down by stuff. And what will I give you? I'll give you rest. And what he means by rest is not a couple of nights good kip. He means a state of mind to do life in. Rest, a state of mind. And he says, come as you are. And if you do come with all your heart, he does the rest. And that's the proviso. It is a bit with all your heart. And I think my experience in the early 20s was that probably I was coming in when I wanted to and then maybe dipping out at other times, and he wasn't number one. One thing he is a jealous God, because he wants all of us. And so, but he says, as you are, that there is behavior is no obstacle to God.
Fab, thanks. And just our last question. My life's going great. What if I never get to the point of running back to the Father?
Thank you for that question. It's a very honest question. I was not suggesting, when I said, and I began by saying, everyone is running, we're all pursuing something hard. It may be that it feels like it's going really, really well. You know, if you've got a professional career, you make the first team, you get the bride or the bridegroom, you're after, etc. Things can come into place. These are good things that God has made, but if you're treating them as ultimate things, you're thinking that they're going to give you everything that you long for, the satisfaction you're dreaming for, they will fail you. Just leave them long enough and they'll fail you eventually. The two ways that I would say that the kind of things that we run after fail us are these ways. One, if you get hold of them, if you fully achieve your dreams, and we'll see this on Thursday, by the way, we've got a Commonwealth athlete coming to share her story. You achieve your dreams, it will fail you. It will not satisfy you, even at that point. You may have heard the story of Johnny Wilkinson, the hour after he kicked that the drop goal for England to win the World Cup in 2003, he just came back into his hotel room. What on earth was the point of that? It's just not fulfilled me. I've lived my life at this point and it hasn't done it. So on the one hand, if you get your dream, it won't fulfill you. Second reason is if you fail in any way at all, it will beat you up. You know, if Johnny Wilkinson had failed, he would have been kicked out. He would have been a useless person. You set your love on a thing, and you fail that thing. You fail in your course, you get kicked out of the university. You fail in your relationship, you get dumped. You fail in the sport or the orchestra, you play a wrong note, you're out of the orchestra. Anything that is a kind of a human construct in this world, if you set your love on it and expect it to be your Lord and Saviour and to complete you, it will never do it. And if you fail, it will dump you. Whereas God, the Father, you go to him. If you get him, he'll satisfy you. You want to go nowhere else. And if you fail him, he'll forgive you and he'll be there for you time after time after time again. So the fact is that it may be for a while that you're running hard and things are going well, but there'll be a time where you'll hit a wall and the thing will dump you. And you may get it, and it never succeeds and fulfills you. Of course, ultimately, these things only endure till your last breath. And this life is a big life, but there's an awful lot of eternity the other side of life. And however good the thing you're running after, degree, professional, career, relationship, or sport, that won't prepare you for the next life, which is to do with knowing God. So
I'll add something to that, and I'll specifically use a sporting context here, because I've done a number of reports on what happens to successful sportsmen when they give up playing, and there is a very, very high proliferation of addiction, especially those who are just below the top division, because often there is work for the top of the Premier League, or whatever you want to call it, I suppose. But below that, there is a very high proliferation of addiction, where people have lived for a high and got adulation from thousands of people week in, week out, and they've been in the papers and they've been in demand for interviews, and then there comes a stage quite early in life when that finishes, and then what? And I think what you see speaking to people very honestly, some of these guys have become friends, is that they say that success is addictive. So you have a high, and the thing about the high, as Dave just said about Wilkinson, is that it creates this desire for a higher high, if you like, and something that's higher. And a very well-known businessman said a couple of years ago, he said, I wished, and this is a guy now, you're talking in his late 60s, early 70s, so, and life can seem pretty cool at this stage, and it is, and enjoy it and make the most of it. We don't want to be merchants of doom and gloom at all. because that's not what Jesus is about. Jesus has lived life to the full. But this businessman said in his late 60s, 70s, he said, I wish somebody had told me that when you get to the top, there ain't nothing there.
Oh, thank you. So guys, we are aware that we haven't answered all your questions. How about you ask the person you came with or people on your table any more questions that you've got. We'll just have some more tea, coffee, cake. Night will go on. We've got more story events coming up. Yeah?
Yeah. There'll be lunch bars in your campuses. There'll be events, like if you follow us or like us on our social media, you'll be kept up to date with all our events. So please do go to those. Enjoy the free food whilst you can, because it is just for this week. And yeah, come to our event every night, same time, same place. And we'll be having different stories. And yeah, it's going to be great.
Also on your tables, you've got Luke's Gospel, and you've got Uncover John as well. They're great little booklets to look through if you want to go through them with anyone. Come speak to us or ask your friend that you came with. They're great little things to go through, know Jesus more and to know who he was. It was great to see you. We'll have some more music now and hope you enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks.
Thank you.